All are equal under the law in Malaysia, or at least that's how it's supposed to be. To make that true, the judges in charge of our rule of law work tirelessly day after day, and we're so lucky to have some of the best judges in the world. Oh wait, what's that? 9 were retiring, 2 are already gone, and you have no practical plan to actually replace them in this country? I'm sure it'll be okay, right? Right?
No it won't.
Sepupus, right here and right now, we're in the middle of what is called a judicial crisis. It is the first time in history that we have no Chief Justice and no President of the Court of Appeal,
With no apparent plan for replacement.
and the Malaysian government is just apparently letting it sit. And now that begs the question, why is Malaysia letting our judiciary fall apart? That's the question Rafizi Ramli, Nick Nasmi, Wong Chen, and the PKR9 are asking right about now. The PKR9 have slapped Anwar in the face,
The AGC says that they are delulu, which our friends respond to by again,
calling for an RCI.
as well by the way as an inquiry by the Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Human Rights Elections and Institutional Reform.
Going out, calling it a bipartisan national issue, inviting not just PKR MPs but also PN MPs from all across the spectrum. It's a campaign, there'll be an online petition.
And even public forums. Share this video with your friends before you attend.
Well, good for you, Muhibah. But before you think this is just sour grapes, or revenge for Anwar shouting at him for 20 minutes, or a whole bunch of other things, yeah, there's more than that. Sepupus, I told you earlier that we don't have a Chief Justice and we don't have a President of Court of Appeal, but we also have what's called a judicial independence crisis. In plain English, judicial independence means if you're a judge, nobody can tell you how to do your job. Not your father, mother, sister, brother, not your YD, not your Tan Sri, not your Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri. And by now I know some of you are looking up judicial independence rankings, country rankings, one after another. But there's a small problem with that. And that is, it's kind of hard to have judicial independence if you have no judges. Sepupus, by the supreme law of this land, a judge of the federal court shall hold office until he attains the age of 66 years or such later time, not being later than 6 months after he attains that age, as the Yang di-Pertuan Agong may approve. Fun fact for you, we have 14 federal court judges and 9 of them are set to retire in 2025. If nothing is done, then literally 9 out of 14 seats on the federal court are going to be completely empty. Now you might think, 關我咩事啫? But it definitely affects you. If there are no judges, then there's going to be a larger backlog of cases. Larger backlog means more delays, means if you actually have to go to court and you get remanded for any reason, the time that you spend in jail immediately goes up. Some decisions can't even be made because the federal court actually needs a quorum or a minimum number of people to show up. And if you only have 5 people out of the 14, it's basically not possible to make a decision. And meanwhile, the entire world is going to think that we're a basket case country if they don't already. Pull out money, stop believing in Malaysia. Goodbye, this is it, Kalas, ciao. Now, if you're wondering why the government is doing nothing about it, trust me, a lot of people are. The Bar Council is livid and calls it indefensible. There's a discussion of a dangerous vacuum. People are asking why, if you have the privilege to extend the tenure of the Chief Judge and President of the Court of Appeal, you didn't do that, even though we have clear evidence that Tun Tengku Maimun would have actually wanted to stay, but had no idea what was happening until the very last day. Meanwhile, this judge is extended, that judge is extended, but somehow or another, our Chief Justice, who, by the way, plays the most important role in all of this, is not extended, not replaced, and now we are in the uncharted, unprecedented territory of living in a Malaysia with no Chief Justice. There is no plan at the moment to fill up the top 2 posts in our entire country's judiciary system, and the Malaysian people should rightly be saying, WTF. Sepupus, this opens up a very important question.
Does the Madani government of Anwar Ibrahim even care about the judiciary?
Of course, he's our reformasi Prime Minister. So Madani, so by the book. No automatic extensions for judges and civil servants. The judiciary must ultimately be shielded from undue pressure, not according to political taste and according to group preferences, while trying to settle his constitutional questions Oh, but whoa, that's not fair. Of course he cares about judicial independence, otherwise he wouldn't have contributed to creating the JAC. JAC is short for Judicial Appointments Commission, and in simple English, it's a group of judges and law experts whose job is basically to pick the right people to become judges. So JAC's job is to produce a list of names to be forwarded to the Prime Minister, who then sends in the names to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for confirmation as judges, and they don't have an easy job. There are lots of interviews, background screenings, background checks. So yes, intense, a lot of work, but very much necessary after the VK Lingam scandal, which the current case is being compared to and which Anwar Ibrahim helped to bongkar many years ago. The JAC was created in 2009 under the administration of Allahyarham Tun Abdullah Ahmad Madawi, about 1 year and 9 months after the VK Lingam Royal Commission on Inquiry, which is interesting because it showcases this dude casually saying correct to Ahmad Fairuz, who later, by the way, became Chief Justice of Malaysia, who later, by the way, suggested the replacement of common law with Islamic law. Wow. Lovely. Thank you, Datuk. Interestingly enough, the only reason we know about this is because Anwar Ibrahim came out strong, buka, giving speeches about judicial independence and how important it was at the time, how noble, how inspiring, until you realize that all logical signs show that Anwar Ibrahim is not only ignoring the statutory body that he helped to create, but also ignored it in the past. Let's start with ignoring it in the past. If we go by the logic of the JAC, then a sitting Prime Minister shouldn't be appointing someone as a judge unless they receive guidance from the JAC. Yet a certain Tan Sri Terriruddin, on the direct advice of Anwar Ibrahim, was fast-tracked even though his name was not on the list. After, by the way, he was recommended for the post of Attorney General, bringing the ire of the literal Conference of Rulers. We only know about this because a police report against Malaysia kini was leaked. And if we follow what Rafizi said,
laporan polis itu telah pun ada dan berlega, dan dia datang daripada pegawai hakim Mahkamah Persekutuan itu sendiri, bukannya daripada orang ramai ke apa. Baik, Kali terakhir institusi kehakiman terheret di dalam kemelut yang melibatkan tuduhan adanya pengaruh bersabit keputusan kes dan lantikan-lantikan hakim ialah skandal video VK Lingam dalam tahun 2007. Kalau kita ingat, skandal video VK Lingam itu berkait dengan lantikan bekas Ketua Hakim Negara Tun Ahmad Fairuz Sheikh Abdul Halim, dan kebetulan pula sekarang ini Hakim Mahkamah Persekutuan yang dipanggil untuk beri keterangan oleh JAC itu untuk menjelaskan tuduhan nombor 4 tadi yang saya sebut tadi, yang untuk mempengaruhi kes dan juga untuk menukar hakim. Beliau pada ketika itu adalah pegawai khas kepada Tun Ahmad Fairuz dalam tahun 2003.
That means that the only logical person that this could be would be. And now moving to the current crisis, with the gaps in judicial appointments, there's a total of 3 possible reasons why there could be a gap at this moment. Number 1 would be that JAC recommended no names, which we know cannot be true. They had recommended a list of names during Tun Tengku Maimun's tenure. That Anwar Ibrahim received the names from the JAC, but did not recommend them to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. And lastly, that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong received the recommended names from the Prime Minister of Malaysia, but did not confirm the appointment of the chosen judge. Which, if we think about it, doesn't really make sense, since the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has to accept the advice of Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri. So, since the first possibility doesn't make sense, the third doesn't make sense either. This leaves us with the last possibility. It is likely that Anwar Ibrahim has ignored the JAC.
That is the logical conclusion. Now, if that's true,
why is Anwar ignoring the JAC's advice? What kind of judge does he want, to the point that he's ignoring the advice of the JAC and then proposing his own names and not even following the institutions that he helped to create? But here's where it gets good. It's Friday, 4th of July, and Acting Chief Justice Hasnah Hashim summons an urgent meeting of the JAC, even though Section 13.2 of the JAC Act says that 10 days of written notice have to be given to commission members. The purpose for meeting on an urgent basis is unclear. We're left wondering what happened and why, although of course the most logical possible reason for JAC to meet is because, we have no Chief Justice, which also logically means that most likely this meeting was for the purpose of coming up with brand new names. Which, by the way, doesn't answer the question of why the last list of names issued by Tun Tengku Maimun somehow tak boleh pakai. Which then raises a question in people's minds. If judicial independence is basically letting judges do their job without any interference, then why is all of this happening? And nobody has a good answer at the moment. If people don't know what's going on and it's a legitimate concern, then we might end up speculating that maybe it has something to do with the fact that he is currently in the middle of a certain civil suit. It might be related to the constitutional questions, which by the way can only be settled by judges, possibly the right judges. This is not an accusation, but I imagine somehow that if all of this is somehow settled before the 21st of July, which is when the constitutional question appeal is going to be heard by the Court of Appeal, and in turn whether Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri is going to stand trial for a sexual misconduct trial.
If all of this is settled before July 21st,
then people are going to be thinking, that is interesting. I mean, did you want to influence people a certain way? Did you want to have protection, even though you didn't explicitly say that that was the case? This is what ChatGPT said. Read it and you decide whether that's true or not. And that's where all of the 4 recommendations come together in a single good old-fashioned package. Hope that makes sense. If any of what I said is true, either the Prime Minister is just extremely incompetent and slow and was not actually doing his job, caught up too much in foreign engagements, receiving his Asian Renaissance in Italian, to actually end up caring about how his government looks, to the point that he could afford to just not fill up the most important roles in our judiciary. Or it suggests something even more sinister, which is that a single man, just for the sake of avoiding a sexual assault trial, went and manipulated the entire judiciary, wants to put people who favor him in place, and wants to get it all done so that he can be protected from dealing with questions from people about something that he should maybe very much be questioned for, preferably with a polygraph. It's nice that Anwar wants to go out gallivanting, saying that the WTO needs to be reformed. But maybe he should realize that a little closer to home, people think that his reformasi is dead, and maybe what he needs to do is get back home immediately and reformasi this country back into judicial independence, or end up breaking the country more than he already has. I mean, in case Anwar forgot about what rule of law means and maybe doesn't care about it, it means that literally the law should take precedence and there shouldn't be any of these questions about the facts that the rakyat see with secret meetings, police reports, question after question from people about why all of this is happening. And here we are in this weird situation already that I'm pretty sure is going to result in a fall in judicial independence rankings, ease of doing business, corruption's perceptions, as institutions become fragile, falling like dominoes one after another as Malaysians learn to distrust their government and the concept of Malaysia from every single possible direction. Well, Prime Minister is just casually hanging out, shutting the world out, and ignoring his burning house at home. And if the Prime Minister has absolutely nothing to hide from Parliament, which we genuinely hope is the case, then hopefully there is going to be a legit explanation, and there's going to be the RCI, which Rafizi Ramli requested, so everybody can just clear the air, and so we don't have to go out and just wonder to ourselves about the judiciary, about the appointments, about all the questions that come out from all of this. And honestly, one of the easiest things in the world to have averted with just a little bit of proper planning, as his own party is slapping him in the face, and all Malaysians are very rightfully concerned about what is going on. Either way, this is where we're at. Hopefully you understand what's going on, why there's a crisis, and all of the different moving parts that are in place at the moment, way better than the vast majority of people out there. If you found this video valuable, please make sure to share it with your friends and with your Sepupus. Alright, that's all I have to say about that, and bye.